So I was fortunate enough to co-author a textbook on how rivers work, and this also involves sediment transport, which is an issue in water harvesting. There's 3 sources of sediment. It's coming from natural arroyos. Sometimes that gets worsened by degradation, bad land management. Then it also comes off of people's property onto the public right-of-way, and it also comes from when the streets decompose, you get particles of asphalt coming down. The content of the book, Let the Water Do the Work, is about how by building deflectors in a channel that was artificially straightened, you can actually use the power of flood waters to assist the stream in its career of self-healing. And I have an example. This is a backhoe that has dug a 6-foot deep trench and filled it with posts that are about 6 inches apart. This is an 05. I use red arrows for bad flow and sediment. I use blue arrows for good flow. So here comes this bad flow. It's eroding a bank. 1 year later, not that much has happened. 2 years later, you can see there's sediment accumulated on the near bank. 5 years later, that bank is completely revegetated, and the message is that vegetated banks, not only do they prevent the release of sediment from that bank by stopping it from eroding, but they can also capture significant amounts of sediment. Another example, stream dynamics, daylighted the San Vicente Arroyo. That's a brand new bridge in my town, and they put the arroyo in a culvert for almost 2 years. We excavated the culvert and reshaped the stream banks, and one of the things, we planted willows, and one of the things we did was build a bank protection that was actually designed to increase shear stress and increase velocity so that the power of the storms coming down the arroyo with sediment would speed up the sediment so it would route it through that pool, keeping the pool permanently deep. So by controlling your velocity, you can determine where sediment gets deposited or transported. Typical street, this is in Columbus, Nuevo Mexico, very close to Mexico. And we had done a workshop there, and then it rained. This is where we hadn't done any work, but you can see the water's going down a dirt street past everybody's garden. You guys know the drill. And it's scouring sediment from the street. And basically, the engineering solution, engineers want to solve one problem, okay? And as it has been revealed, there's a complexity of problems that we have to simultaneously solve. So in my town, it costs money to clean the streets after a monsoon, chubasco, thunder shower. The city manager has stated that it costs about $10,000 to clean the streets. Well, that's $1 per person in my town, and it could cost up to 6 times as much or more for a larger storm. And this does not include the cost to private property owners from fixing their house. If their basement gets flooded, if they have to clean the rugs and redo the drywall and all that. So we've got, this is sediment coming down a dirt road where it intersects a paved street. Very common situation. That's where a lot of our urban sediment comes from. There's a structure called a rolling dip road drain. This is a rural road just outside of Silver City, New Mexico, in which the water in a bad red flow arrow is going down a very steep slope, and it's removing the surface of this driveway during a storm. So I reshaped the driveway so that there was a grade reversal and caused the water to go off the side into a water harvesting basin before the driveway got so steep that the velocity would have been so high that it would have scoured the surfacing. Very famous book. I had been doing stream restoration in a wildland setting for about 8 years when I met Brad Lancaster, and I realized that the urban stormwater management with tiny curb cuts and basins was just a fractal of what I had been doing at the larger scale. And so I've tried to integrate the two approaches. And in fact, Brad has done a lot of work with my cohorts in New Mexico. The basic scenario is the built environment typically keeps water away from the planting areas, and Brad's message is it's not that hard to change things and make the water go where it needs to go. It's pretty basic stuff, we just need to do more of it. And I have been. These are the water harvesting projects that I've done in my small town. 2 years ago, I got a grant from the New Mexico Environment Department to build 80 water harvesting curb cuts, and I'd already built about 25. So by the time this project is over next year, I think Silver City, New Mexico will be the per capita water harvesting capital of the desert Southwest. Even though Tucson has way more projects, their population is way, way more. Very basic, and if you look, you can see there's a little bit of sediment that's collected in the basin, and that is, so this is passively removing sediment from the street, and you do have to shovel that out once or twice a year. There's a lot of impervious surfaces, as has been discussed. One of my more fun projects was actually we got to remove a concrete median, and we left the 1935 historic sidewalk in place, and we just removed the new concrete from the median and did a water harvesting curb cut and landscaped it all with natives. Notice the sheen on the surface of the water. So we are removing petrochemicals from drippy oil pans from going into the stream, and Watershed Management Group and others at the U of A. The U of A chemistry department is studying how microorganisms in the topsoil can bioremediate this, so it's not a problem for the plants. The project I'd like to feature, I finished on, I think, mid-August, and it was tested on September 1 when we got that huge storm. So the Guadalupe Montessori School in Silver City, New Mexico has a little watershed of 26 hectares, and there's the natural flow from the arroyo in blue arrow, plus the red arrow, which is the water and sediment coming from the school's parking lot and driveway. This is a view of the parking lot showing how during a storm, all of the water is actually concentrated towards the driveway, and this is looking back up the driveway at how it's created little gullies. They had to fix this after every storm to keep the driveway passable. So we did a design that it had to be very intricate because we had to deal with pull-through parking because we don't want parents to be backing up and running over little kids. So I was out there for a long time with the school administrators deciding exactly where the parking had to be. We eliminated a driveway in front of the school building and converted it to those 4 blue ponds and a bike path. So I had a limited space in which to do water harvesting. So this is before, this is during, and this is after, with a very complicated arrangement of very micro topography directing flows into the small areas where basins were available in the limited parking area. Starting actually taking runoff from the playground, going towards some basins. Each basin used up about 1 parking space. There were 4 basins in the parking lot, and they overflowed one to another basin during a gentle rain, and finally off a steep bank that had a little rock rundown into a basin that's part of a rain garden. So this is looking down what used to be a driveway that's now a green space and pedestrian and bicycle path. So the water comes down off the parking lot and it goes various routes to slow down, soak into the ground, and finally cuts across the driveway. And there's another rolling dip road drain. We're looking down the driveway, and so the driveway has a dip in it. It goes down and back up so that the water will cross the driveway and go towards a green area instead of going down the driveway like it used to. Okay, can you please show the video? That was a gentle rain. Here's the big flood. It's coming off the hillside. It's going across the playground. It's completely filled those swales. Now it's entering the parking lot and completely overwhelming the parking lot, but it's still going basically where it needs to go. There's that cascading rain garden. The berms got topped. There was some erosion, but it held during the largest storm. There's another route of the water going off the parking lot, down that rock rundown. And there it is going across the driveways and into another green space. It's a complicated project. There's also the roof runoff from the building is staying up top and going into that basin which overflows onto the grass instead of where it used to go down that driveway. There's another rolling dip road drain taking it off the driveway. This is the final flow exiting not onto the street, but turning it across the big lawn, slowing the water down before it enters onto Alabama Street, slowly and with no sediment. Walking back up as the storm diminishes, you can see that this is slowing the water down and causing a lot of it to soak into the ground so it doesn't arrive to the city street all at once. Back to the PowerPoint, please. Okay, so there was some sediment transport, and that had to be shoveled out by hand. We're talking basically the flood of record from a 20+ hectare watershed. This is, I didn't have a good diagram of this. This is a screen capture from the video where you can see the city street in the background. This turned all of the water, and instead of it having going down a steep driveway, which certainly would have eroded the driveway and put a huge amount of sediment onto this paved street, it turned the water away, where it slowed down and spread out, and it changed the dynamics of sediment transport. All of the sediment was trapped in the first water harvesting basin here and the lawn, and none of it went onto the city street. So here's another view, Google Earth screen capture looking down the watershed at the driveway, and what would have happened had this project not been done is it would have created a gully in the driveway from that very fast, steep flow, and where the slope diminished on the city street, it would have built an alluvial fan, and it would have filled the street to the height of the curb with sediment and flooded those downslope houses. I don't know how to account for the economics of not flooding a whole neighborhood, because it all goes downslope from there. And instead, it turned and it went across a big lawn. It entered a street, somewhat less water, much slower, and with way, way less sediment, and went down to another one of my projects where it soaked into the ground there in another, let's see, 2/3 of a hectare park.